Welcome to the Let's Not Forget podcast. I'm Valerie Drown, Director of the Alzheimer's Disease Caregiver Support Initiative, or ADCSI. Like you, I am a caregiver, and like you, I know firsthand that caring for a loved one with dementia can be overwhelming. There's a lot to know when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, and each month I'll be joined by people who have walked in your shoes or who have worked extensively in the Alzheimer's field to unpack it all in bite-sized, relatable chunks that might help you in your very difficult job. So for the next 30 minutes, I invite you to leave all your stress behind as we offer tangible tips and real-world advice to help make the unmanageable manageable. Let's get personal. Today we are getting very personal. Our guest is someone who I've known my entire life and someone who has been my rock, and at times I've also been hers in this caregiving journey of ours. I'd like to welcome my sister, Michele Wright, to Let's Not Forget. Growing up with me in Katyville, New York, Michele attended Saranac Central School and Hudson Valley Community College for dental hygiene. She really enjoys meeting new people as well as spending time with her friends and family. When she's not making her patients smile, Michele enjoys traveling around the country by motorcycle. She also plays piano and is active in her church. She has 2 grown boys and a wonderful husband. I think what I'd like our caregivers to get out of today's segment is how families can work together and play to their strengths when it comes to caregiving for a parent or loved one. We recognize that not everyone is going to have the family support or close-knit relationship that Michele and I have, and that's okay. While we don't have it all figured out, we've been doing this together for a long time to offer some tips, stories, and encouragement that we know will help anyone on their caregiving journey. As caregivers to our mother, the 2 of us approach caregiving differently, which works really well. I'm not a numbers person. That is not my thing. But Michele, thankfully, is, so she handles the financial aspects of caregiving. As the director of Alzheimer's Disease Caregiver Support Initiative, I bring industry knowledge and a matter-of-fact perspective mixed with a little humor. This journey can be overwhelming. It's important to bring levity to your situation by infusing laughter. I think we're both really good at that. Well, thank you, Michele, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, it's a little bit different. I'm sitting in front of my sister, and we're going to talk about caregiving from our different perspectives and how we view caregiving and how we maximize what we do in our caregiving. So, we'll start by talking about the different people we've had to caregive for. So, let's start with Mom.
Okay.
So, Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2020. But talk about some of the things you were seeing from your perspective with Mom.
Before that even hit.
Yeah.
Well, I think we saw kind of a mood change. Mm-hmm. She would sometimes just not be what she was before.
Right.
So I think there was a lot of mood changes there. I think that when it did hit, it wasn't a total surprise because Grandma had it. Mm-hmm. And so knowing that it can, go on from generation to generation,
right.
I think that there was that forethought that, Mom is probably showing signs of it.
Right.
She would get, not defensive, but she would get, maybe, maybe, but the forgetfulness, and then she would get upset with herself. Mm-hmm.
Or argue with us.
Or argue.
If she didn't believe what we were saying because she was so strong on what she thought.
Right.
And then if we disagreed with her or didn't remember it the same way, she would get defensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think you handled that better than I handled things because I would tend to want to correct her. on things where you might not correct as much.
I think in the beginning, leading up to, I don't think I was as good as what I had to become.
Right.
I think in those earlier stages, because you have a lot of history with your person. So you have this background, you have these feelings, you have how you were raised, you have all of these things. And then all of a sudden they aren't remembering things correctly. But I think in the beginning, I did what probably most caregivers did is I would be, kind of softly correcting, but mom she was a tough personality. And then I think as we kept seeing the progression, that's when I switched gears. But I mean, you even saw me. So I have taught people how to communicate with caregivers for years. And let's talk Maine.
Okay.
Let's talk Maine.
Oh, no.
So you and I and Nanny, and that's our aunt, and Mom, we went to Maine because for some reason, Mom always thought she had this special spot in Maine she wanted to go sit. It's on a bunch of rocks.
On the ocean.
On the ocean, but a smelly part of the ocean. It is not a beautiful part of the ocean. There is no beach. It's just rocks. And so we brought her there. And then I'll let you go. Talk from your perspective how you thought things were going in Maine.
From the rock perspective or
Any
from
perspective, because Maine to me was hard to handle.
But it was kind of back and forth. So we did go to the rocks, but she wanted to go to the rocks to read. But I don't think she brought a book.
No.
I don't think she even thought to bring a book.
No.
And then there was cards. We would play cards.
Yep.
And sometimes cards would go okay, but sometimes cards would be horrible.
Because we went outside at one point and Mom had spilled something on the cards.
Her coffee.
And Nanny was upset because everything was a mess and the cards were wet. And we came in and it was just a mess.
Yes.
Yep.
In fact, I think we stopped playing cards.
We were done. We were done for that night. In fact, I think we went to bed and read.
Yep.
Quietly, all of us.
I think so.
Yep.
And then we, I think we were getting ready to go. Were we getting ready to go?
We were going to the beach. We were going to go to the beach.
Yes.
And that was like an hour away. And so you decided that you were going to go and get stuff in the trunk.
Yes, I had to go get stuff in the trunk. So I literally got to the car, and next thing I know, you are walking out to the car.
Storming. Yeah.
Yep. And you were angry.
I was livid.
Okay. And I said, what in the world?
I just left.
I said, what in the world is going on? I literally just walked out of the room.
Right.
I mean, literally just walked out of the room.
And I don't even remember what I said at that point. I think I was ranting.
Yes,
you were. So what had happened in the room, you had gone out. And at that point, my mom decided to tell me that her memory loss was just me making it up. It was no big deal. I think everyone has it, even you. And I broke. I had it. I had it. Nanny was sitting on the bed and watching. And our mom was extremely religious. And I swore at Mom. And I looked over and Nanny's on the bed going... And I left the room. And from then on, that day was extremely
awkward.
Well,
we headed to the beach.
Yep.
And every single side street that we passed, she would name out the side street.
Yeah. She read all of remember, look, that hotel has Wi-Fi.
I don't remember that.
Yes. Yes. And then she goes, open 24 hours a day. And I'm like, oh no, this is going horribly.
But she
And
didn't know how to.
no.
She didn't know how to deal with what had happened, I
Right.
don't think.
And I don't know if she actually even fully remembered what happened. I think it just internally threw her so off.
Yeah.
And then she couldn't recover. She was just trying to get through whatever feelings she was having at that moment.
Till we got ice cream.
We got ice. We got ice cream.
Once we got ice cream, she was fine.
Yes, we did get ice cream. And then we rode home, and by the next morning, she was good.
She was fine.
But that's definitely where I failed. But I think that that's what caregivers do, is we sit there and we beat ourselves up when we don't do something perfect, or when something isn't said right, or when we feel certain feelings like anger or...
Well, I think frustration.
Oh,
frustration
gosh.
is, I think, hard to sometimes control.
Yeah.
And you have to walk away like you did and refocus, reset.
Yeah. But then I think there's a lot of guilt associated with that, because then we say, oh, I should be perfect. Not one of us can be perfect. We can't be perfect people in general. I know it's hard for you to understand, Michele, but not everyone is perfect.
Okay.
My mom did think that you were perfect.
Well.
Yep. Even in her stories that she tells to this day. I just went to see her the other day. She's in a nursing home, and I just went to see her the other day, and she's like, I think she thought I was you. But then she says, I'm surprised that you are nice.
We all are.
I'm like, okay, well, that's good that I'm nice, but I don't even think you recognize me. And then the other one that she'll do is she'll talk about Valerie in front of Valerie. So she'll say, if you knew my daughters, and you were included on that one, which I was surprised. And I said, oh yeah? And she goes, yeah. Michele, not so bad. Valerie. And I go, oh, Valerie. And she goes, yeah, she was atrocious. And I'm like, wow, rough word. Rough word. And I remember I went home and I talked to my husband, and I was like, I don't even think my mom liked me. And he's like, no. I'm like, no, I really. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how we handle as a team, because we always say we're small but mighty.
Right.
It's just you and me.
Right.
So I guess talk about ways that we manage caregiving as a tag team.
Back when everything first started, we were, I think, doing things a lot together. Like we would do food. We would make sure mom had food because mom really wasn't eating.
Yeah.
And so we came up with schedules, and we really worked together more on stuff like that. Then when she went into the nursing home, I think we still worked together, but I took over finances and you took over more of her health care.
Right.
And we still talk, but I think that we don't run to each other for every little thing that happens.
Right.
But, I think it's just, I trust you, you trust me. We've got mom's best interest in mind.
Right.
And because our caregiving role has changed now that she's in the nursing home.
Right. We're still caregivers.
We still are.
Just different.
But different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was you brought up like cooking. I had forgotten that about how much we cooked for her, because she couldn't cook anymore, and she was living independently. I quote independently, but she really wasn't. But even then, when she started getting the food and we were bringing it in, we'd have the to-go dishes, and then she couldn't remember. She thought they were old.
Right.
And so then we had to come up with, we were always problem solving, always. And I think that that's where it changes a little bit with the nursing home, because we don't have to problem solve anymore, or to that extent. We started labeling all the food.
Well, she was throwing things out that was still okay.
Right.
So yes, we would label what it was, and we would put a date for when she should throw it, I think.
Yeah, I think we were putting expires on.
Because that was also a thing, because she would get confused on the date too.
Yes.
So we had to then compromise
Right.
or shift and
Right.
do something else.
So it was always kind of like problem
Yep.
solving and reworking. And I think that
Yes.
we always trusted each other with whatever system maybe one of us would suggest. And I think it's also easier. You and I were talking on the phone last night about how maybe it's easier for someone like you and I, and the fact that it's just two of us.
Right.
Whereas sometimes you've got big families and lots of personalities, lots of opinions, lots of everything.
Right. I don't know if we've ever disagreed over mom's
No.
care or what we should do
Over money.
or money. No, I don't think we've ever
No,
ever disagreed.
I think what we always kept at the forefront was, mom's care was number one.
Right.
We realized that other people giving care isn't the care that we'd give, but we knew that compromises had to be made.
Well, pick your battles is basically what you said. There's some things that are more important to, as far as our care,
Right.
that we've got to focus on.
Right. Yeah. I think that we've focused on what our assets are. Finances are not my asset.
Mom had to make sure the checkbook came out to the penny. And so now I always, well, it's not hard now because there's not much, but I would make sure that everything came out to the penny just because I knew that that's what she wanted, whether she knew or not
Right.
what it was.
I would never do that.
I know.
I'd be like, is it close? Is it close? Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm healthcare.
Yes.
Like I'm the medicines girl. I'm the one who can, because I know a lot of the players in what I call the ball game. I know a lot of the players, so it's easier for me to make contacts with people and say, "Hey, this is going on. What should I be thinking? What should I be doing?" So, I just have those connections. Yeah. If we were in dental hygiene, Champlain Smiles, then I would leave that up to you. So, okay, so on that note,
yes,
we even have what we're good at, our assets, even within just small things.
Yes.
So
I can clean her teeth in a heartbeat.
Never in a million. I struggle to brush her teeth, and I do help her sometimes, but I put gloves on.
That's okay.
Do you? To brush her teeth?
At the office, yes.
Yeah. In the nursing home?
If I can dip it at the nursing home, no.
Nursing home, I glove up. I glove up.
But I cannot. I cannot take care of other things.
Personal care.
Yes.
Whereas
oral hygiene is all about me. You're the rest.
Yeah. I don't want to do oral hygiene. I don't want to clip her toenails. No. If she's feeling sick to her stomach, and I think there's any possibility that we're going to go, I can't. If she starts to vomit, I'm done. So I do know where my challenges are and where yours are strong. So many other things I can do, but I think it's important for caregivers to know what they're good at and what they can manage, and then say what they can't.
But I think that's okay, because why should we put ourselves into a spot that we can't handle?
Right.
Because that's either going to make us more frustrated.
Right.
Or I don't know.
But for some listeners, what they're going to say is, but I don't have that support, so I have to do it all. And so they have to get thrown into some of those areas where they feel so uncomfortable.
That's where we're lucky.
We are. That we've been on the same page, and we continue to be on the same page. I'm going to bring up another story.
Okay.
So this is related to Uncle. So Uncle had a stroke in 2011. And then he passed away in 2020. But Uncle's big thing was he always gave Nanny a card. So it was either like, there were cards for everything. And Uncle would go and he would sit and he'd look through all of the cards and he'd pick the one that meant the most to him.
He'd sit on his walker.
He'd sit on his walker. But even before the cards, he would just spend so much time picking out the right card. So you and I
know where this is going.
You and I decided that we were going to help him go pick out a card when things were really rough for him. And you were responsible. So not that I'm going to point fingers, but I'm totally pointing fingers. You were responsible for getting Uncle and bringing him, and I was going to meet you there.
Okay.
And we got there, and you can go with your part of the story here because I'm going to go to the next part of the story.
Okay, but I might not remember my
Well,
part of the story.
Okay, well, because there wasn't much.
Okay.
Okay,
go ahead.
I'm going to go.
Okay.
Okay. So, Uncle all of a sudden has an accident. And we need to get him to the bathroom. And I look at you and I say, where is his jump bag? Because we always had to have a jump bag that had items in case we needed to use the restroom. And you went, oh, I forgot. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. So, this is in Hannaford.
Yes.
This is in a grocery store. And we get him with his walker. And we get him into the men's bathroom, which is a one-stall bathroom. And door closes. You've gone off to try to go pay for some things at this point, and I'm just going to kind of wait for him. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I better check. So I open up the door, and there's a real problem. And so I need to get into that bathroom. And he had locked the stall door. And now is my time. I crawled on the men's bathroom floor, military style, crawling to get underneath the door.
I'm there by now because I'm
You
watching the door.
Right.
I remember I'm watching the door so
you had
nobody
a huge
else
job.
comes in.
You had a great job of watching the door. Meanwhile, I'm military crawling.
But do we remember we just talked about our strengths and our weaknesses?
Okay, I know. This is where I'm going to go with this was my strength because I was going to get under that bathroom door. And I got under and I look at him and I go, well, hello. And he goes, well, hello. I'm like, hi, fancy meeting you here. And he goes, I know. And I'm like, okay. Now we're in a mess, right? And I remember this was your strength in that moment. You were watching the door and you were wetting paper towels and you were chucking them over
the
stall to which it would then hit the wall.
Well, we can't fit 3 in there.
I don't think you were going to crawl underneath the bathroom door. I got to say it, Michele. Again, strengths. We're promoting our strengths here. And I just remember in that moment thinking, this is where it shows the importance of every team player when it comes to caregiving. Because some of us do have the strength to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to catch a ton of germs on this floor, going military crawl, but I'm going to do it. And your job at that point was, I'm going to watch a bathroom and I'm going to show you how great I am at throwing wet paper towels. But there are other moments when you have to take over because I can't. And so I think that that's what's important is finding where we fit. Mm-hmm. So in regards to Uncle, what do you think are some of the things, the challenges, lessons learned in regards to Uncle? Because there was a much different relationship having Uncle versus Mom.
Right.
Uncle had Nanny.
Yes.
And so we were kind of secondary caregivers.
Right.
Mom had just us.
That's right. Gosh, I don't know. I think going to visit Uncle was really big. Mm-hmm. And then whatever we could do to give Nanny a break.
Right.
Was helpful, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was so different seeing Uncle's dementia versus Mom's dementia.
Right, but I don't know how much of a caregiver I was for Uncle.
Okay.
You
don't remember going and sitting at the nursing home?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We would go, but Nanny was there every single day.
Of course she was.
So, but yes, we went and visited and
I remember in our caregiving at one point, so let's do this one. Nanny has cancer. Uncle's in
That's right.
what started as the nursing home and then had to go, he was in rehab and then had to go to the hospital. So you were with Nanny in Burlington.
Right.
Getting surgery.
Right.
I'm here with Uncle trying to manage his world, his care. We ended up in the hospital.
But that's what we would say. You worry about it, I worry about it.
Right.
And that's what we did.
And we tag team
That's
care.
right. That's right.
I mean, and think about, you look back and you say, how did I ever survive it? I mean, how did I ever manage? And yet, in the moment.
One day at a time.
And what choice do you have?
You do it.
You know?
Yep.
And you mentioned that. So that statement, one day at a time. One of the things I hear other people when they're giving encouragement to caregivers is just take it one day at a time. And often what I find is that for caregivers, it's a moment at a time because caregiving can shift so fast. People's memory can shift so fast. I mean, think about mom's mood, how quickly that would shift. And so I think, you know, for caregivers, we have to relish in the small moments we have and then realize that the challenges shift and change. May not always be the same.
Yeah, we'll go back to Grandma, actually, for just a moment. And I know you don't remember as much because you were
Not as much.
You were younger. But I can remember Grandma laying on the couch, and then I would get down and I would talk to her. And I'd say something, and then you'd think, well, she's not there. And then all of a sudden she might look over at me and wink. And then I used to think, you're there.
You sneaky
You're there
little.
right now. Maybe not in a little while when poor Grandma would pour her Ensure in her spaghetti. Yeah.
I still can't see Ensure today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that what's interesting is so you and I have very different perspectives. We are so similar in so many ways, but so very different in a lot of ways. But I think for caregivers, what we really want them to hear today is to focus on being a team and focus on the assets that you bring to being a caregiver. Because I think truly it does help the overall care for the individual. And that's what we want. We want what's best for them.
Yes. Yeah, that's all we've wanted for Mom especially, too. You know, just make her as happy as can be.
Right. Always make her smile. That's my goal. Let's rewind. Michele, it was great to have you on today's episode of Let's Not Forget. I know your experience will help the caregivers who are listening. If you walk away with only one piece of information from today's podcast, remember, each caregiver brings a different and valuable skill set to the caregiver journey. Make sure to lean on each other's strengths. If you or your loved one lives in Clinton, Essex, Franklin, Hamilton, Warren, or Washington County, ADCSI would love to meet you. You can also find us on our website, wehelpcaregivers.com, or on Facebook and Instagram at We Help Caregivers. Thank you so much for joining us today, and as always, never forget, you're only human, and you're doing a great job. We'll see you next time.